everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Happy Friday, like Esther said. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Amanda Kelly Thompson. I am the Director of Advancement at NAMI Delaware, and I will be moderating today's presentation. We want you to know that you are not alone. This is a very difficult time for many people, and what we talk about today may generate some strong feelings in you that you may not expect. So it's important to know that you can access crisis support 24/7, no matter where you are. For the National Crisis Text Line, you can text DE to 741-741, or you can access the Delaware Hope Line by calling 1-833-9-HOPE-DE, or by texting DE HOPE 55753. I'd now like to go ahead and introduce our presenter. Dolores Thackrah has a resume that ranges from case manager to clinical supervisor. She has seen the many sides of co-occurring disorders and the full spectrums of needs a client has to fill to ensure their pathway to recovery. She is passionate about this field and feels privileged to work with some of the best, namely Brandywine Counseling and Community Services, to improve the lives of Delawareans suffering from the disease of addiction and co-occurring disorders. She received her undergraduate and graduate degrees from Wilmington University and currently serves as their alumni associate, serves on their alumni association. Dolores has worked with BCCS since 2014, and shortly after starting, knew this was the right place and field for her. Next up is obtaining her PhD and hopes to also teach the subjects related to this field. She is sure to keep up with current trends and statistics in regards to addiction and co-occurring disorders in order to offer the most recent education to our clinicians and the clients she works with. As well, she is constantly networking with other professionals and agencies in the state of Delaware to ensure that the clients they serve have all the available opportunities presented to them at all times. This presentation will have a question and answer session at the end, so please type any questions or comments in the chat box and we'll try to answer as many as possible. I will now turn it over to Dolores.
Oh. Hi, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Can I be heard?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on this Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. I have to imagine that many of you are nearing the end of your workday. Maybe we're actually working from home, so that might not be the biggest deal. So I'm going to just go ahead and share my presentation up here for you. Okay, so my presentation is a Little State, Big Possibilities, and it's focusing on hope and navigation through resources in recovery. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about substance use disorder. I'm going to talk a little bit about mental health illness and disorders, as well as co-occurring disorder. But then I'm going to switch it up a little bit and kind of focus on how we in this field can use our knowledge and our power to instill hope in people to help guide them through recovery using the resources that are available. So I'm going to be talking specifically about Delaware. I'm not sure if everybody here is from Delaware, but I'm sure the resources are similar, in the surrounding areas as well. Sorry. Okay, so mental health and substance use disorders affect people from all walks of life and all age groups. These illnesses are common, they're recurrent, they're often serious, but they are treatable and many people do recover. So I believe that a big part of recovery is support and hope that we can instill in people seeking out recovery. Mental illness and mental health disorders involve changes in thinking, mood, and/or behavior, and these changes may be occasional or chronic. So mental health illnesses and disorders such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, just to name a few, They can be genetic, they can be brought on by traumatic events, and they can also be a result of substance use, among other things. In my field, I've worked mostly with substance use disorder and co-occurring disorder in a medication-assisted treatment program. So I've seen co-occurring in adults that mostly have been through very traumatic events through their use of substances. So substance use disorders occur when the recurrent use of alcohol and drugs causes clinically significant impairment, including health problems, disability, and failure to meet responsibilities. So the responsibilities could just be a social responsibility. So a lot of things that we see in people who are suffering from substance use disorder is one of the symptoms is that they will start to make plans with their friends or their family, and they'll break those plans. That's a common sign of substance use disorder, or that we see in substance use disorder. So with co-occurring disorders, it's the coexistence of both a mental health and a substance use disorder, and that is what we refer to as co-occurring. Substance use disorder and mental health issues often go hand in hand, and there are many reasons these issues do go hand in hand, but it's not always easy to determine which came first, the mental health issues or the substance use disorder. But one of the most important things to remember is that we do know that both will need to be addressed and treated in order for a person to fully and successfully recover. So two areas that have been increasingly impacted due to substance use and mental health illness and disorders, especially during this time, the COVID-19 period, are suicide and overdoses. Specifically where I'm working, we have seen an alarming increase of overdose deaths. When we're talking about suicide, so suicide alone it's an epidemic of its own. So according to the CDC, suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 34, and fourth leading cause of death among individuals between ages 35 and 54. Those are very alarming numbers. And when speaking about the current times with COVID-19, some of the symptoms that they say, or some of the signs that you can see for people at risk with suicide, will be feeling hopeless, feeling like they have no reason to live, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, withdrawing or feeling isolated. And especially with the COVID-19, you could understand how it could make someone feel especially hopeless and isolated. I mean, I think we all feel isolated at the very least. So when we're talking about overdose, you probably heard all of the news. None of it is good, especially with this new outbreak with the fentanyl. But drug overdose death rates in the state of Delaware, this is just a really scary thought. It's something that we worry about every day. But in the state of Delaware, 43.8 per 100,000. That's our drug overdose death rate just in the state of Delaware. And we are only second to West Virginia. So West Virginia, the rate of overdose death is 51.5 per 100,000. And we think, and it's been said that basically the reason why West Virginia is higher than Delaware is mainly just because it's so rural. So it's hard to get treatment out to those people. Whereas we have our rural areas, but we also we have all of Newcastle County, and there's a lot of treatment options up here, and thankfully more now in the southern areas of Delaware. So on top of that, some agencies are suggesting that the rates of overdose death and suicide may have increased as much as 30% since the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak. We, of course, will not know those numbers until hopefully this is over, but that's just another layer that we've been dealing with. And that's, the American Medical Association had just basically reiterated that COVID-19 has created additional challenges in both of these areas. So the nation's opioid epidemic has grown into a much more complicated and deadly drug overdose epidemic. And there's great concern by an increasing number of reports from national, state, and local agencies, and media suggesting increases in opioid and other drug-related mortality, in addition to the ongoing concerns for those with mental illness. A big part of this piece is at least in the state of Delaware, is that influx of fentanyl that we did see over, I think it's been over the past, 2 or 3 years now. So what can we do? I mean, how can we help people on their path to recovery? And the one thing that I've always believed is that, it's in our power in this field, in human services, regardless of what role you play, excuse me, a clinical supervisor, or a counselor or case manager or peer specialist, we have the power to instill hope in these clients that we see, and support them and make them feel like recovery is possible. And hope, simply put, it's an optimistic state of mind that's based on an expectation of positive outcomes with respect to events and circumstances in one's life or the world at large. And we should all have hope, for the best outcomes for our lives that are, possible. And we know that the sky's the limit when you have the right people. And in this case, the right resources surrounding you. So what are resources? I mean, resources are, it's a stock or supply of money, materials, staff, or other assets that can be drawn on by a person or organization in order to function effectively. So to function effectively. So we know, like, excuse me, like pieces to a puzzle, we're not whole unless all of our pieces or all of our missing pieces are put back into place. And that's what I like to think of as what the resources can serve. Like, so the little things that people don't always think about or take for granted, if one of those little basic needs is not met, it's a snowball effect of the effect it can have on the overall big picture, especially when we're talking about recovery. So it could be something basic, like helping a client find a suit to go on an interview. It may not sound like much, but if this client hasn't worked for some years due to struggles with mental health or substance use disorder, the suit alone, the new suit, to go on this first job interview in 5 years will give them confidence and will just make them feel good and worthy to even go on, go to the job interview. And as a result, they'll do much better. So sometimes it's just a very little thing that makes a huge difference. So recovery, what does it look like? Well, simply stated, it's when a person returns to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. Recovery is yearned for by most clients. just by most human beings in general. They want to feel normal. They want to fit in somewhere in society. They want to give back to society. They would like to feel like their old selves, or maybe they would like to feel like their healed selves, because sometimes people can't go back because, that's maybe some trauma is actually what got them to this place. But recovery is possible, and it starts with hope. As long as the client has hope within them, there's a fire and a desire inside them to be well. And again, hope is possible with support, and support from us as human service workers, and support through community services, and the connection to resources available. So the resources, it's important to specifically identify the resources that are important in obtaining a goal that has been set out by the client themselves. So what are some of the resources that, we have in Delaware? So these are just ones that we work with every day. And I've seen time and time again, the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this today is that I've seen more success in connecting people to the resources that they're missing in recovery than any other way. The medication, counseling, all of these things are important, but a person's basic needs, self-confidence, self-esteem, all of these things have to be in place for them to even consider entering recovery, and for sure, long-term recovery. So in the state of Delaware, we are lucky. We are a tiny state, but gosh, there are so many resources out there, such as like food banks, clothing banks, parenting classes, emergency assistance programs that could be for housing, transitional housing, short-term housing, turning into long-term housing, job training, drop-in centers, literacy programs, food kitchens, so not just food banks where they can go and shop and actually fill up their cupboards, but somewhere to just go and get a hot meal every day, because who wants to start the day even if they're hungry. And then volunteering, that's one of my favorites, and I think that it's one of the forgotten ones, but it's amazing to see what volunteering has done for people in recovery. So I'm just going to kind of outline some of these resources that we're talking about. On the screen itself, you'll see a few under like each resource. There are many more. I just listed the main ones that I'm used to using, but I have a resource book available, and there's contact information at the end of the presentation. So if there's any part of this that you would like me to share with you, please, feel free to contact me. But first off, so we were talking about food kitchens, and just like I said, if you wake up and you're homeless, maybe you're homeless, or maybe, you're sharing a house with so many other people. Maybe they're all struggling in some way, whether it be substance use disorder, mental health illness or disorder. And for whatever reason, you just don't have the money, or you're not at a place where you're spending the money that you do have on food for your, to eat. So these kitchens are amazing. They open up at least twice a day, and anybody can walk in from the community, and they can typically it's breakfast and lunch. And with that sustenance, they get energy, motivation, and, just a bit of normalcy. So some of the places that I've named, the Sunday breakfast mission, if you're from Delaware, I'm sure you're familiar with that. The Emmanuel dining rooms, and then drop-in centers. Drop-in centers are really cool resources. I'm not sure if you don't work right in this field directly, or maybe even in substance use, the fields, that you would know much about the drop-in centers that we have available. So I'm going to lead into that. So drop-in centers are really cool. So they basically are tiny little community centers. Well, the ones that I've seen have been small. So anyone can walk in off the street, whether they're in treatment with the organization that's providing the drop-in center or not. They can walk in, they can get, a cup of coffee, they can get a sandwich, they can get a shower, they can do their laundry, they can sit and talk to, their peers. A lot of times there'll be some assistance with like computer use, or there'll be some informational videos, educational videos on whether it be related to mental health or it be empowering or related to substance use disorder. But more than that, I think what drop-in centers do is they offer support and understanding, and they take away the stigma of the people that need the most help. And I know it makes them feel good to be able to go to a place and be around people who also need this level of help. And it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And I think these drop-in centers definitely surround them with that support, understanding, and love. Because I do know that in a lot of these drop-in centers, there will be like peer recovery specialists who have been in either substance use disorder situation, mental health, or have had a history of trauma themselves, so they can really relate to the people that are coming in and just make them feel welcome and normal, or what they like to feel as normal. But it's a special kind of support and hope in these drop-in centers. So the next one would be food banks. So this is a little different than our food kitchens, our food kitchens. The food banks are, as we know, and we've heard much more about them through the COVID period, like on TV and stuff. It's a place you can go and actually get groceries. So this is going to be huge for somebody who may have shelter or not. Sometimes shelter is tent off of Route 13 behind ShopRite. But there's a ton of comfort that comes from just not having to wonder where your next, meal or where your food's going to come from. So the great thing about these food banks is that they can go and actually they'll get groceries, just like if you went to ShopRite. So that's going to give them a sense of security and stability. And believe it or not, even if they are living in a tent, it's still going to give them more security and stability than if they had to think about panhandling every day just to put food in their mouth. Because truth be told, and we know this, that not everybody is prepared or comfortable going to the food kitchens, so this offers an alternative to that situation as well. So the big resource that we're always talking about in Delaware is shelter. Anybody that works in the human services field knows there is a shortage there. We're very limited. They are expanding, which is promising, but it's hard to place everybody that needs help. What I found out in working with my clients is that patience, which is not always easy to come by, especially if you're struggling in so many other areas, is definitely worth its weight in gold, because sometimes you have to kind of climb the ladder to get into permanent housing, permanent shelters. For example, and this is why they need us. This is why they need our support. And this is why we have to be there to keep telling them, it's going to work. It can work. Don't lose hope, because sometimes you have to first go to an emergency shelter, such as Sunday Breakfast Mission. Stay there for a couple days, and then you can go to a social service center, And at the social service center, initially, they may only be able to offer you some like motel assistance. That's a little step up. And you may stay in the motel for, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. But that could very well lead to a more permanent housing situation. Again, back through our social services, and that could be our rapid rehousing, our permanent supportive housing, or even the joint transitional housing. So the shelter piece is, it can be very discouraging. You definitely just want to stand beside them, walk beside them, hold their hands sometimes, and just encourage them to just hang on, because I've seen many people placed into permanent housing, but I have seen that it's quite the process. And obviously shelter is one of the most important resources and one of the most important things for a person to have a really good chance at recovery. I mean, it would be not impossible, but it would be extremely hard for somebody to be homeless and to want to, start their journey on recovery because they don't feel safe and secure. And just from the beginning, just not feeling safe, secure, and stable, you're not going to be worrying about too many other things but where you're going to sleep at night. So now if we have shelter, or if we get, we stick it and we get the shelter that we're looking for, we might move on to job training. So this list is very short. The list is very long for the state of Delaware. It is quite impressive. I just put some of my favorites up here, but the job training, again, is amazing because you are dealing with people who may not have worked, for the past 5 years, maybe 10 years, whether it be due to substance use or what mental health, illness, or disorder. And sometimes the substance use or the mental health illness, it actually stops them from progressing past a certain age and a certain ability because of their use or their lack of treatment. And I only say that to say that sometimes they need things like literacy assistance. So sometimes they need the basics like learning how to read and write past a 5th grade level. Well, there are places that offer just that. The Delaware Division of Voc Rehab is one of them, Career Team, Goodwill. And then also they offer, it can go from literacy training to GED assistance to resume writing, all the way up to interview training, all the way up to job placement. But we do have many programs that are really dedicated to this process. One of my favorites is the Delaware Food Bank. And I only learned of this because I volunteered myself there for a little while, but they have a culinary school. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And then come to find out, and you get the certification and they spend the time and they help you become employed. It's some of the best restaurants in and around Wilmington and in Delaware. The other part that I loved about them was that a lot of the people that they had in the school or the applicants were reentry. So they might have been coming out of incarceration. So it was like that kind of second chance program. So that I just think that's a beautiful thing because basically that's what we're always trying to do, right? Is give that person a second chance. And it doesn't matter if it's their, 3rd or 4th or 5th, it's kind of always just your second chance or your next chance. So sometimes one of the things that we talk about with substance use disorder, mental health, illness, or disorder, is idle time is the enemy, right? You're not doing anything. You're sitting around. You're feeling sorry for yourself. You're angry. Sometimes you wind up using because you're bored. And this is a resource that I have used time and time and time again, that I feel like is kind of like the forgotten one. But I think the benefits are huge. I mean, they are for even, somebody just like me who may not be struggling with those kinds of things, but I just know how it makes me feel to volunteer. So there's so many volunteer opportunities first in Delaware. If you don't know, all you would have to do is literally Google volunteer Delaware, and tons of places are going to come up. So the cool thing about volunteering is watching the impact it has on a person's life. So it gives them purpose where they otherwise felt like they had none. It helps build their confidence through meeting positive people in positive environments. It adds valuable support to their life. So we're always talking about positive support systems. That's definitely something they can gain through volunteering. It gives them purpose. And they're giving back to the community. So that makes them feel, pretty awesome. The other cool thing about volunteering is that there are so many opportunities. It's almost like anything you are interested in, and I mean anything from gardening to coloring with the elderly. I don't know if those two are so far apart, but anyway, you get my point. There are so many opportunities: Meals on Wheels, Big Brother, Big Sister, Paws for People, if you like to work with kids, the Equine Rescue, if you want to work with horses, Habitat for Humanity, if you're handy. So you can find just about anything that you actually enjoy doing, which would be a strength of yours. And you can find a volunteer opportunity at that organization. Really, the sky's the limit. And this is probably one of the most valuable resources that we have. So other resources that we offer in, nationwide and in the state of Delaware are treatment centers and helplines. And those are, so this is kind of like where it's kind of in the middle. So I feel like once a person's basic needs are met, food, shelter, then they are more likely to seek out treatment. So the treatment aspect is obviously very, very important. And once they get into treatment, they're going to be seeking out the bigger pieces of the puzzle, the job training. You then could talk to them about the volunteering. But this is where they're going to get their counseling. They might get their counseling. They may get medication. I, for one, work at a medication-assisted treatment program. Sometimes it's just having a helpline or a lifeline to reach out to. These are awesome treatment options, the helplines, because they typically run 24/7. There's it's anonymous, and you can call in your worst time of need when you feel like your world is ending, or you just need someone to talk to. And honestly, sometimes you find comfort just in talking to a stranger, someone who's skilled and knows, what you could be going through. But still, it's sometimes more comforting than talking to somebody that because you don't want to upset them. I think that happens a lot, especially in suicide. So Brandywine Counseling Community Services, we actually do offer a wide variety of services, not just the clinic on Lancaster Avenue, but we have a non-OTP, which is you have just like your drug evaluation services. We have DUI classes. We have a prevention program for adolescents. We do have a drop-in center. SOAR is an amazing, amazing organization, survivors of abuse and recovery. We do see a ton of that, unfortunately. That's a lot of the trauma. Catholic Charities has a wide array of treatment options. Open Door, New Perspectives, and then our helplines, NAMI, of course, contact helpline for, suicide prevention, hopefully. And the Delaware helpline is pretty cool because the Delaware helpline will help you do many things. It could be to tell you where the next mobile food bank will be. They can help you quit smoking. They can connect you to housing. And then they also have a counseling line. So, the takeaway from all of this is just that, yes, we are a tiny state, but we have the resources and the knowledge to instill hope and make a huge difference in people's lives on a daily basis. And then, just as I stated earlier, here's my contact information. I would encourage anybody to reach out to me if they need help getting someone connected to resources, services, treatment, anything like that. You can certainly email me or give me a call on my direct line at any time. And that concludes my presentation. Amanda.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Dolores. That was wonderful, very informative. We are going to answer any questions people may have. I've gotten a couple, but if you have any that you'd like to ask, make sure to put them in the chat box before we wrap up today. We had one question come in. Do you know any specific volunteer opportunities that allow individuals who were previously incarcerated, or the opposite? Do you know of ones that necessarily don't allow individuals who were previously incarcerated? Do you have any suggestions when it comes to that?
So right off the top of my head, I do not, but I do work very closely with a counselor that works specifically with reentry. I know for a fact I could get the answer to that on Monday. So if that person, whoever they are, if they'll take my email address or my phone number, or vice versa, if they want to pass that off to me, I'd be happy to look into it, and I could definitely get back to them on Monday.
Great, thank you. And then we had another question come in that says, how do you suggest encouraging your clients to continue or start using a lot of these resources? Do you have any tips or tricks to try and encourage them to actually take the steps to use?
Yes, so actually this happens pretty organically. So one of the things that we do in our, with treatment is we're person-centered. So with that, our clients are, they're identifying the goals they have for themselves. So it kind of leads the conversation. So whatever goal they have, or something that they wish they would have done, or something that they've never done before, don't think they can do, that conversation always leads to all the possibilities. And it's like, oh, but you can do that. And let me tell you, let me show you where you can go get your GED, or whatever it is. But it does happen organically, and they set their own goals, and we just help them see that they're obtainable. So we just have the resource book and knowledge.
Wonderful. Someone else asked, do you know of any volunteer opportunities that are pandemic friendly and can be done remotely?
Well, it's funny that you say that. There is a website that I saw today, and it was specific to pandemic friendly volunteer opportunities. Again, if I could get some contact information, or vice versa, I could get that to them, because I just saw it today.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then let me see here.
I could even email it to you, Amanda, if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, we can definitely,
However,
definitely do that. And we actually, NAMI Delaware has a COVID-19 resource page
okay,
on our website. So we can, if you do see that, that would be wonderful for us to add to that.
okay,
If
great.
anyone's looking for other resources for clients or themselves on COVID-19, we have been compiling that on NAMI Delaware's website.
Okay, awesome.
Great. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. I'll give it a couple minutes just in case anyone wants to throw any in the chat, but we'd like to remind everyone that this presentation and all of the presentations that happened this week are going to be up on NAMI Delaware's website starting on Monday, and they'll be up for 30 days, so you can go back and review. And so if you missed something or you wanted to come back and see something, they will be up on our website and on our YouTube page. And so that way you can also share it with colleagues or friends as well. And I'm not seeing any other questions. So Dolores, do you have anything else you'd like to add or anything?
The only thing that I would add is please just don't be shy. You know, I'm super open to assisting anyone in any way. I'm very passionate about what I do. So if there's even if it's a question I don't have the answer to right away, I'm very good at getting back to people. So I would encourage anybody to reach out to me with any kind of question.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. I think we can kind of pause it there. It looks like the contact information is back up. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to present and share all of this wonderful information with the group. And we hope everyone has a great rest of their day and a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.